I don't see her. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Leah. I am trying to figure out my.
Hi.
I'm trying to switch to my AirPods, but it's not working for some reason.
I mean, can
I
you
can't
hear
hear
us?
you.
Oh, I can hear you. I can hear
Okay.
you.
I can't hear you. Are you on mute?
It might be me. Hold on, let me check. Let's see here. Select a microphone headset. Oh, here's Blake. He's gonna. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leah Nash, your Executive Director. Thank you very much for being here to learn about this very important topic. So I applaud you for that. I am going to be introducing Marisol Zentino. She is our first Vice President and she'll be facilitating today. So Marisol, kicking it off to you.
Great, thank you, Leah, and thank you everyone for being here with us today. As always, we are pleased to have another exciting lunch and learn of something that really matters to us because it matters to our environment. Today we'll be speaking to Dory Larsen. Dory joined the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy in 2017 and was named Electric Transportation Program Manager in 2020. She's working to accelerate the transition of electric vehicles. EVs are like we'll be hearing for this this hour to accelerate the transition by promoting the growth of electric vehicle ownership and supporting EV-friendly policy and program, which I think that is great. A lot of times we want to do electric vehicles, but we have to see it from the policy side and how the cities can help us. She advocates comprehensive EV infrastructure. She serves on the board of Drive Electric Florida and chairs the Tarpon Springs Sustainability Advisory Committee. Before joining SACE, Dory worked as an instructional trainer as a science educator in the public school system. She also led a community action campaign to keep massive development from changing the landscape of Anclote River. She is a graduate of the University of South Florida and a Master of Public Health degree and received her Bachelor of Science in Biology from Florida Southern College. She is passionate about helping people see the strength in working collectively to solve problems. She is an avid reader and lover of the Florida sunshine, where she and her husband are raising her 2 children. With no more ado, we'll have Dory speak to us. And as she goes through, after a little while, she'll stop so we can put in some questions and that we can answer them. And so you don't have to wait too long before hearing responses. Dory, the time is yours.
Well, thank you so much for that warm welcome, Marisol. Thank you to the League Women Voters for having me today. I'm excited to talk with you all. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that get us all set. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Are you seeing the slide, the cover slide?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Dory.
Great. All right. Well, like Marisol mentioned, I'm Dory Larsen, the Electric Transportation Program Manager with the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, or SACE. So thank you for the opportunity to work with you on this critically important effort. I'm going to go ahead and stop my video for a second so that you guys can just see the screen and focus on that. All right. So the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy is Electrify the South is a program of the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, or SACE, that advances the work of SACE. So we're leveraging research, advocacy, and outreach with the focus of accelerating the equitable transition to electric transportation throughout the Southeast. And I lead our work with local municipalities using our Electrify the South toolkit to educate and encourage local officials to take actions that will increase the adoption of EVs. Together with Electrify the South, the League of Women Voters Florida Clean Energy Committee are working on this issue, and we're inviting local leagues around the state to advocate with their local officials to remove barriers and install incentives to EV adoption. So with this presentation, I'm going to go through an EV 101, and then I'm going to take a pause, like Marisol said, so that you can get some questions answered and kind of break it up a little bit. So if you do have questions, please put those in the chat. And then after that, the EV 101, I'm going to explain what our policy toolkit is and identify and explain 3 specific actions or policies that you can help advocate for with your local elected officials. And then we'll discuss next steps for engagement with local leaders. So why electric vehicles? Climate change is a reality for Florida and for the rest of the world. Transportation fueled by fossil fuels is a major contributor to producing the carbon emissions which are causing climate change. By electrifying transportation, a significant amount of carbon will be reduced. We're really at a critical juncture on climate change, and we need to move quickly over the next 10 years. Electrification of transportation will be key to that success, and the League could really make a difference. I also want to note that it's really important that transitioning to when we're transitioning to electric transportation, that there are many co-benefits like economic development, job creation, and increased public health. And when we're talking with local leaders, they may be prioritizing those very high in their list of actions to take as well. So it's really important that we don't overlook those co-benefits. So when you do go to meet with elected officials, you will want some background information on what electric vehicles are and their benefits so that you can convey that to them. So the next several slides are intended to give you kind of an EV 101. So I'm going to share the slides, and they have links so that you can go back and review at your own pace. So don't feel overwhelmed because there's going to be a lot of information coming. And like I said, after this segment, we'll take a break for question and answer. So to make sure that we are level set, I wanted to show the different types of electric vehicles. So basically, electric vehicles are a category of vehicles that include both plug-in hybrids, shown in blue, and battery electric vehicles, shown in green. It's basically any vehicle that has the ability to plug in and accept electricity as an energy source. So let's take a look at some of the benefits of electric transportation. And the first is that EVs offer significant emissions reductions. When we're talking about emissions, there's 2 types of emissions associated with transportation that come from the tailpipe when we're burning gasoline or diesel. One is greenhouse gas emissions that exacerbate climate change. And the second are called criteria pollutants. And they cause human health issues and environmental problems like smog as well. But with no tailpipe, all electric vehicles reduce both types of emissions. I also wanted to address, there's a misconception that the electricity to power EVs is generating just as many emissions as gasoline burning cars. But as you can see, EVs emit over 60% fewer greenhouse gas emissions over the life of the car compared to gasoline vehicles. And this is partially because electric vehicles are so much more efficient and our electricity grid is getting cleaner every day. On average, a car in the United States, a gas car, has to get 88 miles per gallon to have the same greenhouse gas emissions benefits as an electric car. And I also wanted to reiterate that these emissions reductions are improving every year as more renewable energy is being added to our electric grid. So EVs will continue to get cleaner over their lifetime. And then the second is the second benefit is lower lifetime ownership costs. So when it comes to buying an electric vehicle, many consumers may like the idea, but there are misconceptions about the affordability of an EV. The purchase prices are still typically higher, but not really as significant as or different as one might think. So Kelley Blue Book average electric vehicle versus an average gasoline powered vehicle is only about $4,000 higher. And that's without incentives. And research from Consumer Reports shows that when total ownership costs are considered, so we're including factors such as purchase price, fueling costs, and maintenance expenses, EVs come out ahead, especially in more affordable models. Plus, many manufacturers still qualify for tax credits of up to $7,500 for a new EV. Also, the fueling costs with an electric vehicle are much lower. So people frequently ask, what is an EV going to do to my power bill? As you can see, it costs about $35 to $40 to drive about 1,000 miles, which is what an average month's worth of driving is. And as you can see, gas prices are almost triple that. So they're a lot, there are a lot less costs to fuel than a traditional internal combustion engine. And then the third is convenience. One of the most convenient features about electric vehicles is charging the vehicle at home instead of having to visit a gas station to fill up. And powering them is easy. You can schedule to charge your electric vehicle at night while you're sleeping. So you can skip the pump and you never have to worry about dirty gas tank handles. So I'm going to show you guys a video that Deirdre had put together, and I would encourage you to share this as well. So that video is put together by the league, and encourage you guys again to share that. It's a great little clip. So because there are no oil changes with an all electric vehicle, you save time and money. Additionally, because they don't use oil, you never have to worry about those greasy oil marks in your driveway. And with fewer moving parts, EVs require less maintenance than traditional internal combustion engine vehicles. For example, besides tire rotations, the first scheduled routine maintenance for a Chevy Bolt is 150,000 miles. All right, and the fourth benefit is efficiency. So EVs are a lot more efficient than the average. Fuel efficiency in the United States is 25.1 miles per gallon. And the fuel efficiency for most electric cars is over 100 miles per gallon equivalent. So that's just an equivalent of electricity per the energy in a gallon of gasoline. So basically that means that you're going to use a lot less electricity to get from point A to point B, a lot less. And then also electric vehicles have superior technology and safety features. EVs are really fun to drive. The quickest mass-produced car in the world is a Tesla Model S, but all electric vehicles have that powerful instant torque. Propulsion from an electric motor means that EVs are smooth and have a quiet drive, and they have to pass the same rigorous safety standards, often with flying colors, as a traditional car. The technology of EVs is really superior, and powering them, like I mentioned, is convenient. You can charge them overnight. So that means you don't have to worry about going to gas stations. So it really is like going from a flip phone or a rotary phone to a smartphone. And I also wanted to just share some projections. Globally, Bloomberg New Energy Finance projects that by 2040, nearly 70% of passenger vehicle sales will be electric, which is great news. Also, Florida has the second highest EV adoption rates in the country. So we're right.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Hello.
If everyone could mute if you're not the speaker, that'd be great. Thank you.
So like I was saying, Florida is second in adoption rates of EVs behind the state of California. Also, the Florida Department of Transportation just published their electric vehicle infrastructure master plan, which is shown on the right. And using their high projections, they're anticipating 35% of cars on Florida roads will be electric by 2040. Currently, there are, let me go back actually, 70 models of electric vehicles that are plug-in and hybrid available. And by 2026, another 84 models are coming to market. Also, I think it's worth noting that the average new electric vehicle gets 286 miles of range before needing to be plugged in. So the point is, automakers are decisively pivoting to EV. To date, there has been $460 billion in global investments in EVs. So this isn't a fad or a flash in the pan. EVs are coming, they're coming quickly, and it's really exciting to be part of it. If you would like to learn more information about individual or specific models, one fantastic resource is Plug-in America's PlugStar website. They list all of the current makes and models, and it shows an MSRP and a range, and then it also links to the manufacturer's website. So that's a fantastic resource that you might want to check out. And I also wanted to make sure that we all understand that there is an electric application for every truck and medium, so medium and heavy duty trucks, class 3 through 8. So on the left, I just wanted to be able to show and demonstrate the different classes of trucks. So there are, you know, those large walk-in trucks that you see, like the Amazon delivery trucks. There are school buses that are electric. There are garbage trucks that are electric. The city of Ocala actually has an electric refuse truck. There are electric fire trucks that are available, and there are electric transit buses. So when we talk about, you know, going to municipalities and talking to them about their fleet, it's not just light duty vehicles. Right now, you know, there are quiet garbage trucks and emission-free delivery trucks happening in towns all across Florida, but we need to be advocating for more of that. And I also did want to talk about charging an electric vehicle. So there are basically 3 different ways that you can charge an electric vehicle. So there's level 1 charging, level 2 charging, and then DC fast charging. Level 1 charging, you'll also sometimes hear it referred to as trickle charging. And that adds about 5 miles per hour. So if you charge overnight, you can replenish what you've used in a day. The second is level 2 charging, and that is the type of outlet that you would have with a clothes dryer. So it's a 240 volt outlet, and it allows you to add about 25 to 60 miles per hour. And these are the types of charging stations that you see around town. Some folks also choose to install them in their home. We've done that. And then the third type of charging is called DC fast charging. And that is the type of charging that you find along highways. It allows you to quickly recharge about 80% of the battery in about a half an hour. And I also did just want to point out the different shapes. So the one on the left is called Chatamo, and then the one on the right is called the SAE combo, or sometimes it's called the CCS combo. So the one on the left is used by Nissan, and they actually are phasing that out so that their newer models are going to be the SAE combo, so that in the United States we'll have that standard outlet shape for the DC fast charging. besides Tesla. So Tesla has their own proprietary charging, and the shape is the same for all levels of charging. So I'm going to take a pause here. This is the end of EV 101 to see if we have questions.
Yes, Dory. As you can tell, there's so many people that are so interested in this topic, and sometimes it seems really confusing. I mean, to me, it's like this is like a whole new language. So we want to address a few of the questions because, you know, we're all used to driving our combustion cars, and we know what to look for. So we're learning a whole new system of speak practically. So we have a couple of questions. The first one, which it says, is there a cost for charging EVs away from our homes? And in the same Q&A, is there a quick charge available? How long does it typically take?
That's a good question. So there are a lot of free charging options within communities. A lot of vendors that install them, whether it be public charging at a community center or a city hall or at a business, you'll find them free of charge. The level 3 charging that's out, you do pay for that electricity because there's a much higher cost to bring that type of electricity to a station. And there are also demand charges that are associated with it, but it typically is still not more expensive than the cost of gasoline.
So with those charge, and by the way, that question was from Adrienne Katz. With that though, is it, if you were to charge it faster, would that entail a cost?
That's the DC fast charging that charges rapidly. And by rapidly, I mean within a half an hour to 80% capacity. So those stations you almost always find a charge with. And they typically range about 24 to 34 cents a kilowatt.
So then we have a question from Jan Richmer. What upgrade in electric is needed to charge vehicles at home? Do we need to change from 110 to something else, or?
Yes. So like Mary said below, you need to call an electrician and have them install a 240 outlet like you would for your clothes dryer. So that's what we just had the electrician come to our garage, and he pulled from the panel. He just connected the wire, dropped it down, and put a 240 outlet on it. There was enough space in the panel that it only cost us $150 for him to do that. Some older homes, they need to upgrade the panel to be able to have the capacity to do it, and that becomes a little more costly, but it's typically pretty inexpensive to have that 240 outlet added.
Great. David says, since highways maintenance is funded by fuel taxes, how are EV going to fund highway road maintenance?
And I think that that's a really great point, David, because we are not advocating that EVs don't pay their fair share. They have in the past several cycles of the legislature put forward bills that would be a registration tax or a registration fee for electric vehicles that would fund the road system. The issue with the road fund is that it's been underfunded for the past 20 years. And that's really because of inflation, and they haven't adjusted it for inflation. And also regular vehicles are getting more fuel efficient. So we're paying less in gas taxes. With EVs right now in Florida being less than 2% of vehicles on the road, EVs really aren't the problem of not being able to fund, the road fund right now. But as more adoption occurs, there's going to be a bigger gap. So we definitely are going to need to address EVs paying, into the road fund going forward.
Perfect. I think this next question you'll be able to answer in the next section. This is from Robert Roop. There are thousands of non-electric cars on the road in Florida and across the country. Can we also try to encourage conversions and encourage government to give tax breaks for EV conversions and not just new electric vehicles? If not, there will be a lot of waste piling across the country.
That's an excellent point.
So we'll do that one in the next section, I'm sure. Then we have from Diane, when we charge them, how does it affect our electric bill?
And I answered that in one of the slides. So it's typically about $35, $40 to have enough electricity to go about 1,000 miles per month. So you would typically be adding about $35 to $40 to your electric bill.
But for the 1,000 miles, if you only do 5 miles around your little area, that 1,000 mile will go a very long way.
Absolutely.
So that's and Dory, I think that's part of what we have to think about. That is not immediate, but in the long range, right? Because yeah, you can invest the $140 for the electrician, whatever, $35 for 1,000 miles. But it takes a while to drive 1,000 miles if you're just driving locally, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Mary Gutierrez says, oh, sorry, I missed one. Pat, what about the news reports about volts spontaneously combusting?
So that's the bolt with a B, and they're not really spontaneously combusting. It's when they're charging. There is a recall on the bolt right now, and they are going to be replacing the batteries. So I think that when you look at the number of fires that have happened, it's under 20. And there are far more combustion engine fires every day in the United States than 20. It really is a lot safer to be driving an electric vehicle. Unfortunately, EVs in the media sometimes, as soon as Tesla's mentioned or as soon as electric vehicles mentioned, the media really pulls attention to that. But if you look at statistically, the vehicles that catch on fire, it's gas vehicles.
So we'll just go really quickly into this other one so we can have enough time to listen to the rest of the presentation. Diane Thorpe asks, since they use batteries, aren't the batteries going to be a pollution problem?
That's also a good question, and all of the manufacturers are working to address that. So Tesla has announced that they have a closed loop system, and Ford has also just announced a program to have a complete closed loop system. So that means that they are recycling the battery components. It is a lot cheaper to recycle the batteries and reuse the lithium and the other metals that are in the batteries than it is to mine for new materials. So, obviously that's critically important to make sure that we are balancing environmental issues as well.
And Suzanne Lowe says, I understand the advantages of an EV over traditional car, but I drive a Toyota Prius, my second. I typically fill up once every 4 to 6 weeks for $25. Please give me the arguments for changing from my Prius to an EV. From your presentation, sounds to me that it will cost me much more in maintenance beyond the purchase price.
Well, there isn't really maintenance with an electric vehicle. So I'm not sure what that question is, but I would be happy, Suzanne, to take that question offline as well and dig deeper with you on that.
Perfect. Do you want to continue with the questions, or would you like to continue with the presentation now? It's just about 1:28 now.
Yeah, I'd like to continue, and then we can keep going with questions.
Go back. Perfect. I'll make a note where we stopped. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. I'm going to shut my video off again. There we go. All right. So now I'd like to shift to talk about how you and fellow league members can take action. So we have created this flyer. So don't feel like you need to read this all. I just wanted to do some screen grabs of what the flyer looks like. And it's got the benefits of EVs that we just talked about on the one side, and then it has the top 3 policy actions and policies that governments can take on the back. And I also have the link to this document on the slide, so that enables you to either send it via email or be able to print it and hand it to decision makers. So next I'm going to talk about the top 3 policies. And I also just wanted to emphasize that this is meant to be an overview. So there's going to be a lot of information coming up next, and I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed. So please don't feel like you need to be a content expert to take action and to go meet with your elected officials. The reason I included so much information with all of the links is to enable you to go back later and become as versed as you're interested in becoming. But today's ask is that you familiarize yourself with the benefits of EVs and the top 3 actions and policies, and then schedule a one-on-one phone call with me so that we can create a targeted approach to engaging with your local decision makers. So just to review, I'm asking you to familiar yourself with the benefits, familiarize yourself with these top 3 policies that I'm going to go through, and then we'll schedule time to have a one-on-one conversation where we can formulate a game plan. So when you are meeting with decision makers, you'll first want to explain the benefits of electric transportation, like I did with you, talk about keeping pace with the technology, how they can achieve lower fuel and maintenance costs for their municipality, how they can reduce emissions and improve public health, and also project a positive community image. So this is one of the image here is one of the all-electric buses in the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority fleet. So they have 6 electric buses, and they've wrapped it to be able to communicate with the community that this is an all-electric bus and show the benefits. All right, and then the next thing that I wanted to share is our Electrify the South Policy Toolkit. So this is a screenshot of our website where the toolkit can be found. The toolkit is a digital resource that curates best practice local government EV policies from around the country with links to real world examples. And the toolkit is a catalog of cost-effective, sustainable, and equitable policy options for public officials to choose from to support climate and transportation electrification action plans. So what we've done is we've narrowed this entire big policy toolkit down into 3 policy action items that are really critical steps for local governments to take. And those are transitioning the local government fleet, establishing and implementing EV readiness policies, and providing top-notch EV education to staff and to community members. So I'm going to go through the basic principles of each of these 3 now. So the first policy action is to transition the fleet. Several municipalities in Florida already have electric vehicles in their fleet. So light duty vehicles are in Broward County's fleet, the city of Cape Canaveral, Coral Gables, Dunedin, Gainesville, Largo, Leon County, Miami-Dade County, the city of Newport Richey, Orange County, Orlando, Sarasota County, Sunrise, Tallahassee, West Palm Beach, and Winter Park. And that's just a snapshot. So there are more, but it's exciting to, that this is happening all across the state. I also wanted to point out that there are different decision makers with 2 different categories. So light duty fleet decisions are typically made at the city or county level, but also policy can be made at the administrative level and may not need full city council or county commission approval. So that's, and some things can be, policy decisions can be made about how vehicles are procured or purchased. So that's something to keep in mind. Decisions about adding transit buses are typically made by transit authority boards, which are typically composed of elected leaders from that county. And then school bus decisions obviously are made by local school boards. So that's really the main idea. I think everybody understands wanting to get more vehicles in the fleet. The second policy that I'm going to talk with you guys is called EV ready policy. So with the increase of electric vehicles, we're going to need to have a proportionate increase in charging infrastructure to support it. An EV ready policy requires a percentage of parking spaces built to include electrical infrastructure that will enable future EV charging. And requiring EV infrastructure to be planned for at the time of new construction is one of the most impactful and cost-effective actions that a city can take to really facilitate the adoption of electric vehicles. So when we talk about EV readiness, there are 3 tiers. The first is called EV capable. And what that means is you're adding enough electrical panel capacity and then basically running empty tubing to a future EV parking spot. EV ready means that you have the panel space, the tubing, you're also running the wiring and adding in a outlet. So you're creating a complete full circuit. And then EVSE installed is everything in EV ready parking, plus you're adding in the requirement of having the EV charging station as well at the parking spot. So it's important to note that there's, when we say EV readiness, it's not necessarily adding in the charging station, it's also future-proofing and creating access. So, why do local governments choose to do this? It really comes down to cost savings. So as a percentage of total new construction, EV ready costs are typically very low. In one study of multifamily and commercial projects, EV ready costs were estimated at 0.13 to 0.17% of total construction costs. And that works out to about $920 per parking space. Post-construction can be almost 4 times higher, averaging about $3,500 per parking spot. Retrofits are really expensive because you are requiring the additional electrical capacity to be put in after the fact. You're doing boring and trenching and then having to refill it all in with concrete. So that's why EV capable at the very least is such an important action, especially when you think about parking garages and have a lifespan of over 50 years. Parking spaces may have a lifespan of 20 years. So we're really trying to future proof. And then the other reason that cities implement EV readiness is to increase access. So this is a really busy slide. The main takeaway is if you look all the way to the right, people that live in apartments, see all of the red, they don't have access to home charging. So they have to charge and have to rely on community charging. On average, about 80% of charging happens at home, and low to no access to home charging is a well-established barrier to EV adoption. So like I mentioned, the renters who lack access to home charging really have to rely on public charging, and that's leaving too many apartment dwellers without access to the ability to own an EV and have access to the benefits of driving electric. So EV policies lower that cost barrier of charging station installations, especially in multi-unit dwellings, and increasing access to home charging for low to moderate income multi-unit dwelling communities in turn increases access to EV ownership. When we're talking about energy, one of the tenets of energy equity is access. In the past, with broadband interconnection, with Wi-Fi, we saw digital redlining practices that really led to a digital divide in communities on who has reliable Wi-Fi connection and who doesn't. And we want to make sure that these kind of inequities do not persist as we transition to an electrified transportation system. So we need to ensure equitable charging access to all community members, and EV-ready policy adoption is really key to that. And you can see there are quite a few communities in Florida that already have taken action and have already implemented EV-ready policies. Also, like I mentioned, the Florida Department of Transportation master plan that was put out, it was actually the final report was released in September. And it includes recommendations to promote installation of community charging infrastructure, including developing minimum EV-ready parking requirements for cities. So the state is, basically blessing what local governments are doing with EV-ready policy with this EV master plan. All right, so now I'm going to switch gears and talk about the third topic, which is education. So these are the things that local communities local governments can provide to offer top-notch EV education. So sometimes when we talk about electric vehicles and how we communicate, it feels like the Wild West. All sectors, public, private, utilities, non-government organizations would really benefit if we standardize how we communicate about electric vehicles. So one way that cities can do that is to create an amazing EV website on their city page. Lots of cities have done that. Some of them are part of their sustainability or resilience section of their website. So I'm calling this slide an amazing EV, the anatomy of an amazing EV website. So one thing that local governments should share on their website, on their EV website or web page rather, is promoting all of the EV work that they've done and bragging to the community about what they've done to prioritize clean transportation. So if they have EVs in their fleet, they should say that. If they have public charging stations, they should, make sure that people know that. Some cities have permit waivers for installing charging stations. So ask cities to tell their story well. The second is to provide community members with education on the benefits of EVs. And I'm going to talk about all of the different components of that coming up and really explaining the cost benefits to residents so that they see the value of their tax dollars at work. The third part is linking to trusted partners like I showed for Plug in America so that people can get additional resources about model information. And then making sure that they're adding links to their webpage about the rebates. There are federal and state rebates for both EVs and for charging infrastructure. So making sure that people are aware of that. And then the last part is making sure that all audience members in the community, like developers, understand what is required. So the city of Atlanta has put together a really great guidance document for developers so they understand what's required of them, and making sure that that's communicated well on the city's website is important. And it's really important when cities have these resources on their website that they don't just assume that the word is getting out. So it's, League of Women Voters chapters can help do outreach and remind community members that these resources exist. The best website only exists and nobody's visiting it, then the message really isn't getting out. So it's really critical that local governments link to social media and connect with community members so that they're sharing all of the great electric vehicle resources that they have. The next slide is information about local governments hosting an event or putting on a presentation. So similar to the EV 101 that I gave you, these are all of the resources that would have an impactful in-person event or presentation. So I've hosted well over 100 electric vehicle ride and drive events, and there are certain questions that come up every time we host an event. So I compiled them, and I'm not going to read off all of them because I just went through these with you in the EV 101 section, but I just wanted to point out that these are all links to provide additional information to you as well. And it's also really important that local governments communicate with residents and staff and business owners and developers all about emissions, like I did with you earlier in the 101 conversation, because it really greatly impacts community health. So making sure that people understand the types of emissions, how they're, more than 50% fewer emissions than with a traditional vehicle are really important to have on in a presentation or on the city's website. And then a slide about charging so that people understand the components of charging. So I'm not going to go through that again, but this is a website that has a link that can show you, it works kind of like Google Maps where you can see all the charging infrastructure.
Dory, if I could, we can do the next several ones in the next section. But I wanted to thank you for bringing up so many important things, and I want to remind the viewers on the Zoom meeting that we're looking here like at the large picture, which I'm so grateful that you mentioned the way that we can lobby and request things from our elected officials, because this is not just about each of us maybe switching to EVs, but it's about making our community better and helping the environment. I live in Miami-Dade County and I work for the county, and I know they've installed and they've done some new parking spaces in the garage for the employees. But you're right in reference to the multifamily housing. Those people, they don't have charging stations, so that creates a barrier, and it's something to think about. You did say that the PowerPoint's going to be available to us or through the committee, so we can share. I think that's what we have. One thing that we have to take from this meeting, that this is all for us to go to our elected officials to think of the big picture and how this is going to be better. I was listening to a story from NPR the other day about the emissions and how the health of people in certain communities is so much worse because of the emissions from vehicles, etc. So I just want everybody to think about that it's not just about each of us individually and how much it would cost, etc., but the bigger picture of changing the way that we use transportation in our counties and in our cities. Are you ready to take some more questions?
Sure.
Perfect. I'll go sort of where I left off. Deborah says, I've had my Tesla X station wagon for 4.5 years, cost about $250 for the home charger. I needed to add the $240. We also had added solar panels in 2016. If we can change during the day to offset the electricity use. How about that thought, including the solar panel? I love it, Deborah.
That's fantastic, Deborah.
Yeah. Helen says, where would my hybrid fall in this discussion? And that was a question that a couple of people had about the hybrid versus completely electric vehicles.
So
it's not an either or thing, is it?
Well, one of the very first slides I showed, there's an internal combustion engine that only takes gas. A hybrid is more efficient, so it uses less gas, but it still really is an internal combustion engine because it doesn't take electricity as a power source. Then the third category is plug-in hybrid electric. So that has an electric motor and a gas engine. So it can take both electricity and gas, and we do consider that an electric vehicle. And then the fully electric vehicle only takes electricity.
So would you say then that, like, I have a regular car, a Honda. So if I was to want to switch, should I just jump into an EV, or do I do the hybrid in the meantime, or what? I mean, this is from like a regular person. How would that work?
I think there's a great website that I can share that the Sierra Club, it evaluates how far you drive every day and what you need. But we only have electric vehicles in our house. I have a Nissan Leaf. My husband has a Bolt. We use the Bolt to travel longer distances. We take it to Jacksonville. There's charging along the way, no problem. We take it to Miami. There's charging along the way, no problem. So, I mean, I would really encourage people to try to explore going all electric. But there are plug-in hybrids for, some people take cross-country road trips and really want to be able to have that flexibility. So.
Okay, thank you for that tip. So then the other question, and I'll go in now on are EVs makers working on expanding the range between charging, and then that would tie it in with the infrastructure. I know there's like a big push to have them at different service stations and so forth, but how about if you like stop in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing? Is that in the works?
So yes, the batteries costs, just like solar, are coming down tremendously. I mean, to the tune of, like, it used to cost $1,000 a kilowatt for the kilowatt pack. Now it's $120, and that cost keeps coming down. So orders of magnitude, the battery costs are getting cheaper. So the cars, electric vehicles are becoming cheaper, and more manufacturers are working on lower cost models, and also working on longer range models. So the range on the initial Nissan Leafs was 85 miles before you had to plug in. There are Teslas that have a range of over 400 miles. So just within the past 10 years of the technology, the battery range has really expanded.
Great, lots of comments about how great vehicles are. Rachel Maddox and the 150, the F-150. And I actually have somebody at work that is working for that, waiting for that to come out, the trucks. The people that have large vehicles to become EVs, right? Because you know, they use it for work and pickup and to pull boats. So that's a factor. If you can go into that, how's that gonna work?
With electric trucks?
Electric trucks, yes.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the Rivian is actually been released, and the Ford F-150 is coming online next year. It's in production, and the price is right at $40,000. So it's priced well. It has tremendous amount of towing capacity, like 20,000 pounds of towing capacity. They really helped with, they had the plug-in hybrid F-150 truck is already available in Texas during the brownouts in January. People were able to plug heaters into the outlet, and the battery can expel energy as well. So they were plugging the heaters into their trucks and using them to stay warm during the bad storms. So there's a resilience factor with electric vehicles as well.
I'm glad you mentioned Texas and what they had with the hurricanes, because somebody did mention in Louisiana, and when we lose power, especially like in Florida, when we have a hurricane, and my mom was out of power for 2 weeks a couple of years back. What contingencies do we have for that, for resiliency in those cases?
Well, that's part of what the master plan was addressing, is making sure that we have more charging infrastructure to be able to facilitate evacuations for hurricanes. But I will say that I put solar panels on our roof as well. So I can't, and it has the 2 inverters. So I can plug my car in even when the power goes out and still have a car that's functioning. When power's out, gas stations don't work either. The pumps are, those are electrified. So they have to have electricity going to make them work as well.
Or just use your EV to power your house.
Exactly. Thank you, Charlie. You've done that.
Perfect. We have only about 8 minutes, maybe 5 minutes left. So we still have about 24 new messages on the chat. So what we will do, we will download them and then send out responses to them. We'll see if Dory can take some time to respond to some of those questions and put them back, because we do want you to complete your presentation because it's been so interesting. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so yes, I would love to schedule a one-on-one conversation with anybody on today's call who's interested in going to their elected officials and making the ask to take action on the 3 items that I laid out. So fleet adoption goals, implementing EV ready policy, and adding education and events as part of the city's plan, so that we can put together a targeted strategy. And I can provide you with community-specific data and resources. I'm really eager to be a strong partner and ensure that you have the tools that you need to feel comfortable to do that. Also, if you could ask your local League of Women Voters chapter to get involved, if you can identify electric vehicle drivers that might be interested in helping, I think that would be great to know. I also wanted to point out that the League of Women Voters Florida Clean Energy Committee is going to be hosting 3 more meetings like today's presentation. So if you would like to listen to it again, or if you want to invite other league members to join you, then please attend. So I've got the dates here. So October 19th at 2 p.m., November 16th at 2 p.m. We're going to take a break in December. We'll come back in January on the 18th at 2 p.m. And to request a link for those Zooms, send an email to the League of Women Voters Florida Clean Energy COMM committee at gmail.com, and they can get that out. I also wanted to share my contact information. So my email is Dory, D-O-R-Y, at cleanenergy.org. That's obviously an older picture with my brown red hair, but that's me. Please feel free to email me so we can set up time to have a longer conversation. I will say that because it is National Drive Electric Week starting tomorrow and through the week, I'm going to be in Orlando all day hosting an event tomorrow. And then I'm flying to Raleigh to support an event that we're having at the state capitol in North Carolina. So I'm going to be on the road for the next week. So bear with me if I don't get back to you right away, but I definitely am interested in carrying the conversation forward. And then I also just wanted to share our Electrify the South social media channels. Join us, invite you to like Electrify the South and get on our mailing list so that you can kind of stay current when we're having events in the community, and also our monthly newsletter. That's all I have.
Great, thank you, Dory. And I've learned so much. I'm like, I'm pretty sure everybody is. I hope I'm definitely going to share with my league in Miami-Dade so we can get involved in this. And we want to thank you again. And we want to give a moment to Mary from the Clean Energy Committee. I know she put the information on the chat, but it would be great to hear from you, Mary.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to Marisol and Leah and Blake and the board for saying yes when we came forward with this proposal to bring this fascinating, very timely topic to our audience today, to our group. Our Clean Energy Committee meets every Wednesday, the third Wednesday of every month at 5 o'clock. We welcome everyone to come and join. This particular month, October 20th, we will be hearing from Jared Walker with the Electrification Coalition, and he's going to be talking about fleet transition to electric vehicles. So a very timely topic. In addition to the town halls, which Dory just listed there, we want invite everyone to come and learn again. It's a new topic for all of us, and we've got some learning to do and some action to do. Thank you.
Mary, thank you for that. Mary, can you give us the dates of the town halls again? Maybe put them in the chat or email something.
Absolutely. Well, we will do that. We will do that.
Perfect, because I myself didn't catch it. It was so quickly.
October 19th is the next one.
Perfect.
2 o'clock, yeah.
And I'm sure we can do something on our Florida voter so when it goes out.
Exactly.
Perfect. And with that, I will kick it back to Leah. I want to thank everybody for being here and for your attendance and for always supporting the league and our priorities. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everybody. Thanks again.